We're fine. Sorry about that. Greg, I'll let you begin since you're the incumbent, so if you'll take a couple minutes to say what you'd like to say.
Sure.
I'll flag you down when.
Sure. Okay. Obviously, my name is Greg Sandstrom. I'm current Kitsap County Coroner. I grew up in South Kitsap. In fact, one of my first jobs was a paper boy for the Bremerton Sun back when I was 12 years old, and I delivered all of Manchester. Went to South Kitsap High School, graduated from there, and then went to Olympic College and graduated there with a police science degree. Planning to go into Washington State Patrol, which I did, and I was in the State Patrol for 13 years. Of course, graduated from the academy from there. And during that time, I was also an EMT for the State Patrol. After I left the State Patrol, I went into overseas missions and went into a group called YWAM. And we were in Southeast Asia, including China and Hong Kong and the Philippines. And we did a lot of medical and facility, as well as for orphanages over there, supported the orphanages. Came back here, was a local minister, as well as I spent 5 years as a volunteer with the South Kitsap Fire chaplain program, and did a lot of funerals for people I didn't know, but I got to know a lot of people there, and it was very interesting. Then I decided to go into the coroner's office, so I joined as applied for and was accepted as a deputy coroner. I spent 5 years working for Ted Zink in the coroner's office until he retired. And then he supported me to run, and I've been the coroner for the last 12 years. The reason I'm in this office is because I believe I'm well suited for it. My background has kind of set me up for that kind of a job, and I thoroughly enjoy the position I'm in helping people. My whole life has been dedicated to helping others. While in the State Patrol, while in the coroner's office, I, of course, investigated hundreds of deaths, anywhere from suicides, fire deaths, baby deaths, and everything in between traffics. And have taken a lot of different courses, numerous courses, such as homicide, underwater death investigation, child deaths, blood spatter, you name it, I've taken it. I've already taken at least 20 different classes since I've been in the coroner's office. I'm also the president of the Washington Association of Coroners Medical Examiners for the last 5 years. I'm also on the board of Compassionate Friends locally, as well as on the board for the South Kitsap Boys and Girls Club. I was appointed by the governor to the Forensic Investigation Council, which oversees the crime lab and toxicology lab for the state of Washington. And they have a budget of about $44 million. We also work with groups such as MAD and RUAD, which is Reduced Underage Drinking. Some accomplishments I've done since I've been here, of course, we have our new facility that I've worked on tirelessly for 10 years solid, going around the state and finding the best of each of the different offices we have to try to combine it into the one we have now, which we did. This year, I put in for a grant for an X-ray machine, about the only thing we're really lacking in the office. And I was granted that grant, and that should be coming in towards the end part of this year. The nice thing about the X-ray machine is going to save my office and the county thousands of dollars, because right now we take our bodies to Harrison Hospital to be X-rayed at the tune of between $300 and $400 each. All my deputies will be X-ray technician trained. It's a digital X-ray, so it's a fairly easy process, and they will train us. I've also worked with the health department, the Harrison Hospital, and the Department of Emergency Management on working up a mass fatality plan for Kitsap County. And I also worked with the state of Washington for a mass fatality plan for the state of Washington, which we have finished. I also received, which I'm really happy to say, I've got bipartisan support from the Democratic Party as well as the Republican Party. I'm endorsed by the Republican Party. As far as Democrats, I've got Steve Boyer has endorsed me, Russ Hauge, the Sheriff's Guild, and I also have senators and congressmen, legislators that are supporting me, including Jan Angel and Derek Kilmer. And I've also got many coroners throughout the state who have endorsed me.
Thanks, Greg. Pete.
Good afternoon. I suppose I'm the one that everybody knows the least. I'm Pete Favazza, the challenger. Let me start by saying that I'm a local business owner with strong ties to Kitsap County. I have been an entrepreneur for probably as long as I can remember, constantly in business for myself if possible. Especially in these tough economic times, that's something that is one of those things that most people can't claim. I've worked closely with many government, military, police, and humanitarian organizations such as the White House Communication Agency, Interpol, U.S. Army Special Forces, Europe Command, Interpol, Army Material Command, 3rd Marine Expeditionary Brigade, Army 1st Infantry Division, Army 3rd Infantry Division, and so on from my time overseas. In that time, I was an investigator working as whatever they needed me, really, to go out there and check out the crimes that are happening. I helped interfere with smuggling efforts from Al-Qaeda, Taliban, the Serbian Mafia, the Ukrainian Mafia, human trafficking, prostitution, human organ harvesting. These things happen worldwide, and they're a horrible atrocity. We help track down these criminals and capture them.
I'm sorry, who were you working with to do that stuff?
That was when I was in mostly, well, which part?
Kind of your, all these international things. I just missed who you were working with.
Special Operations Command Europe whenever I was in Bosnia and Kosovo, the 1st and 3rd Infantry Division in Afghanistan and Iraq.
Okay, thanks.
Mostly. I mean, they do change. Interpol, NATO. Interpol, as you know, is mostly an intelligence gathering agency. They disseminate that information down to the local authorities in that region, and they can then use that information as best as possible. During that time, I volunteered my personal time, which was not a lot of time, to work with the U.S. Army Mortuary Affairs. I feel that that was a very important step in my life because it allowed me to give back a little bit to the fallen soldiers that I had once been able to communicate with, talk with, spend my time with, even strangers that I had gotten to know. While working with the White House Communication Agency in 1999, I received an award from President Bill Clinton. I have volunteered as an instructor for the American Red Cross. I have, on September 11th, I was flying to North Carolina that morning, and when we landed, you know, you don't know when you're in the air, but when we landed, after discovering what had happened and due to the nature of what I was involved with at the time, I volunteered to be among the first to go overseas and challenge these terrorists that had attacked our nation. And I was on the 2nd aircraft of contractors and civilians that were allowed to go in theater, and I'm very proud of that fact. It was no small effort because you just don't let anybody go on the first couple of flights. You have to be somebody, and I felt very proud to serve my nation and to help bring these criminals to justice. I've been responsible for more than $2.4 million in equipment and budget. I've had up to, well, 35 is a low number, but 35 is a good round number, I suppose. At any given time, I could have more or less people working for me. These people were overseas. They were working with me in these combat environments, and they relied on me for their life and livelihood. I've always been able to get the job done on time and on budget, and that's another fact I'm very proud of, especially considering the difficult environment in which we worked.
And so your business is a military contractor? Is that you didn't?
A former contractor.
Okay.
Excuse me, I wish I'd brought a water.
And is that the business you're still operating? Or?
No, sir. I have not been a government contractor now for about a year and a half.
Okay.
I've been trying to stay local. I feel that that's a job for a younger man. I've been over there long enough. It's been more than a decade. Well, I joined the Army in '96, and I stopped deploying in 2007.
Okay.
So, but all that time was not while I was active duty. It's kind of all mashed together.
Okay. You had said at the beginning that you're a local business owner, so I was just curious what your business is.
Oh, I have a convenience store,
Okay.
trying to open a restaurant, and I own a part of a roadside service business.
Okay. And so your kind of your connection and history with the job of a coroner would be through the work you did with the Army mortuary. Is that
U.S.
is
Army
that where you-
Mortuary Fair?
okay.
Yeah. Well, I had the opportunity to encounter people who have recently died before that time, but I felt that that was a good outlet, especially for what I was seeing and what I was feeling. If you haven't been in a place where explosions are happening and bullets are flying and the brotherhoods are being built, you know, it's a difficult thing to explain.
What has drawn you to this office in particular? What do you see as what role you would play or how you would fit into that?
In January, I was doing some research online, just kind of looking to see what was happening in the world, and I ran across several stories. One of them, which moved me very strongly, was a story about a young boy named Elijah Tate. And so I was moved to talk to his family, and I discussed with them, you know, what I had been planning, and hesitantly at first, but then later, very sincerely, I got their blessing to move forward and speak about young Elisha and his situation, what had happened to him, and bring his story back to the world. Among the other information that I had found, I found a story about Christina Shannon, who was a young woman who had died. I believe that there was some information that wasn't taken into account, and her cause of death was recorded improperly. I have a question about the medical examiner that we're using, such as why are we using him exclusively as opposed to something like Clallam County, where they use a series of 3 medical examiners, and we rotate through these 3 medical examiners so we have more of an unbiased and fresh opinion on what is happening, or so we can have somebody else that we can easily request information from, instead of just this one source. Every time I look up Dr. Alexina, it's unfortunate, but I find inaccurate findings. People always challenge his findings, and I believe that that there may be a misunderstanding here, but after the information from what happened to him in 1996 with the sexual misconduct and being terminated from Pierce County, as well as then being brought into Kitsap County, and being our exclusive source of all things medical examiner related, all information, I believe that we should have at least more of a pool to draw from. And my question is, why are we using him exclusively? I have more if you want me to continue.
Just on this, on the topic of the medical examiner, because I'm going to have Greg.
No, please. I would love the interjection, because, like you said, we want to have this as a conversation.
Sure, Greg. Would you like to respond to the?
Oh, sure. Yeah, things that Pete's mentioned here about Dr. Alexina, there were some things that happened in Pierce County, and I don't know all that happened there. He is not, never has been an employee of the Kitsap County Coroner's Office. He's only contracted to do autopsies. He comes in and does his autopsy and leaves. So I can't address exactly all that happened in Pierce County. But it's interesting that Pierce County also hires him at this time to come in and do the overflow autopsies. So obviously they haven't kicked him out of the Pierce County Medical Examiner's Office. Dr. Lysine also has a contract with Mason County, Thurston County, Grace Harbor County, and he does work up in Clallam County as well.
Is there a state agency that should be doing a background check on that? Do you know how? I mean, you're making some claims about some sexual allegations in his past in the 90s.
These are documented, these allegations. These are the reasons why he was terminated from the medical examiner's office in 1996. There are several, if you go to my website, there's, all the links are there.
Okay, well, I guess I'm not trying to put him on trial because he's not the one running here, but what I'm curious about is is this always the medical examiner that has been used in the 12 years you've been in the office? He's
been here actually in the 17 years I've been here, because I was at the corner for 5 years. And he was used before I came here. He was being used even after that incident before I came here. Dr. Lysine is a well-respected person in his field throughout the West Coast. And if you ask the prosecutor's office, they'll tell you the same thing. They love using him in trials because he's very good. We've never had any problem with him in our office. Like I said, I don't address what happened or didn't happen.
What's the process for doing kind of the routine, whatever, quality assurance or checkups? Do you do that on a regular basis with the people you contract with for jobs like these?
No, I don't quite follow you what you're saying.
If you contract with a medical examiner, at what periods of time do you stop and say, we need to evaluate what his performance has been?
Oh, sure.
Is there
Okay.
what is the process?
Well, whether or not they're coming up with a good evaluation of what happened, or a good cause of death, manner of death, we keep a close eye on that.
I guess that's what I mean. How is that audited? What have you put into place that gives you confidence that this person is doing a job accurately and we are getting the cause of it correct?
Well, basically just through our office and what we see if he's doing things correctly or not, as well as the prosecutor's office.
As they go through investigations, that things would
They do,
match?
as well as law enforcement, and law enforcement and the prosecutors has the utmost respect for Dr. Luxina.
Is there collaboration with the other counties? You were saying there's a number of others that are using him at this time.
There are a few other
Do you stay in touch with one another as far as...
traveling medical examiners, and we do use those on occasion when Dr. Luxina goes on vacation. So we do see their work also. There's Dr. Fino, Dr. Sela, and Derek Kiesler, so to name three of them.
And those are coming through on just here and there?
Right, they're all independent doctors, or pathologists, I should say, all
And
board certified.
they would only be used when the current medical examiner is either on vacation or away for some other reason?
Right.
Do you have any idea of how many times a year?
How many autopsies?
Yes.
Probably about, I would say 12.
Okay, so it's a small number.
Well, 12 to 15. Actually, this next year, Dr. Luxina and Dr. Fino are actually going in together. They're going to be co-doing them together.
And Pete, you seem to think that if you were rotating the task among a number of people as Clallam County, that would ensure, what is your...
It would allow us...
Why is that a better thing to do?
It would allow us a much tighter margin of error. Again, like I said, I've researched Dr. Luxina. He's not the one, really in the limelight here. So I'd like to give him the respect professionally as a doctor, some distance. But the fact of the matter is, why are we favoring him over exclusively over a rotating system? He may not be available. He may go on vacation. As Greg just said, we do have part-timers that come in and do such a small number of autopsies every year. But the fact of the matter is, we should be breaking that down and rotating it around so that we have a much broader scope. That way, if one person's questioned or compromised professionally, it doesn't affect everything that they've ever done for our county.
Greg, is there a thought behind using one rather than others? Or rather than a rotating system?
Right. Speaking of rotating, and the problem is that they don't review each other's cases, so you'd have a different opinion on any case. Or you may have the same opinion, but it may differ a little bit because of each person coming in. But you're not having another doctor come in and take a look at that case and making a separate opinion, because they don't do that. They don't overlap each other.
And so you just you prefer the consistency of knowing?
I do, because it is consistent. We know Dr. Luxina's work. We know what he does. Law enforcement knows what he does, and they appreciate him. Prosecutor's office knows what his testimonies are like, and they prefer to stay with one pathologist if they can. And the other advantage is that we have a contract with them. When we contract with them, no matter how many autopsies done, we're willing to pay them a certain amount of money. And actually, it's a cost savings to us. The problem with using several different pathologists is that you're paying them a set fee for every time they come in, or consultations, or even a physical exam of the body. So what you're doing is actually paying a whole lot more.
Because you have less control of your costs.
I'm sorry?
You have less control of your costs when it's dependent on the number of deaths you would have. That's what you think. Is that how you understand Clallam to work, or?
No.
I assume that's what you're using as your comparison.
Well, it's one of the comparisons, yes. But absolutely, my understanding of what's happening at Clallam is they can go to whoever is on the list and make that call, and they pay the same amount because it's all in the contract. You say, hey, I'm only going to pay you this much if I need a consultation. Every one of them agrees to whatever their rate is. That's my understanding. It's a contract. It's not going to change.
How do most counties in this state do it? Do most counties in the state do kind of a rotating system, or do they just have one main contract? Most
of them do rotating, because they don't do as many autopsies as we do. However, Thurston County is a good example. They're going on a contract with Dr. Laxina this coming year, because in the past they've been doing rotating ones, but they don't all charge the same. Dr. Fino, I believe, charges $1,400, and Dr. Silo charges, I think it's $13, and Dr. Laxina is charging us $12. So there is quite a variance in cost. And Clallam County does not have a contract; they only have to call whichever is one is available.
Oh, so they go kind of I don't know, a la carte is probably not the right word, but as the death happens, they go through a list and call to see who's available.
I still don't see how this could be much of an issue. You agree to pay them only so much, or they're not on the list. And I don't know that we've even tried to find another rotating pathologist.
Other than, you cited some things in his past that may or may not have happened, is there also a concern over the quality of work that's being done? Do you hear that from people? Is this something that,
Absolutely.
Is that a reason for running for this office? It's
one of the reasons. First off, I question the professional demeanor, but more than that, even if you had, a child running the shop, you could still produce accurate results if that was a well-trained and educated child. I think it's important to call into account the Christina Shannon case, which is right here. At the Francis Haddon Morgan Center in Bremerton, when she died, the preferred cause of death was drug intoxication from, chlorpheniramine, which is an antihistamine. And the state toxicologist said that he feels in this case, as this one, feels in the case as important as this one is, consultation with the experienced toxicologist, not just the state lab analyst who signed the report, is imperative. Well, he never bothered to verify what had happened, because this blood sample was taken 3 days after death at the point of autopsy. Why did it take 3 days? What really happened if she overdosed on these drugs? How did she get them? She was mentally incapacitated, unable to go get her own pharmaceuticals. These had to either be administered or made available to her to consume. So I don't know. This is an interesting case to me, because either she didn't die from that particular, it was either a contributing factor or the actual cause of death. And secondly, there might be criminal intent there.
And you're saying the medical examiner ignored that, would not have passed that along?
Right.
Something worth looking into.
The cause of death was brought into question, and that was one of the things. Another thing.
Question by her family?
The cause of death was brought into question according to Dr. Sigmund Minshall, independent forensic pathologist in this case.
I guess I'm asking, who brought it to your attention?
I found it online. I was just doing a little extra research about the Kitsap County Coroner's Office at that time, whenever I was deciding whether, what to be done. I didn't even know if I was going to be running at that point. It hadn't crossed my mind until later.
So is your main motivation then because you feel that mistakes are being made?
Yes.
Okay. Because things have been called into question?
Absolutely.
Okay. How often do other, and you might be able to answer this too, Greg, but how often do other medical examiners have their things called into question? And is Dr. Lysina worse than others, or the same as others, better than others?
I don't know. I haven't done a huge amount of comparison between Dr. Lysina and other doctors, especially other medical examiners. Greg would probably be more qualified to answer that question.
Like I said, I'm the president of Washington Associated of Coroner Medical Examiners, so we keep our eye on different things like that. And this is not unusual. We've had, since I've been in office, over 3,000 cases investigated. That's not all the deaths. We have about 2,000 deaths a year in Kitsap County. But out of the 3,000 deaths investigated, there's 2 cases that we actually went back to and took another look at. The first one he mentioned, Elijah Tate, actually happened before I was coroner. And we took another look at it. I reinvestigated it, and it was also reinvestigated by the Attorney General's office. We contacted all the doctors that were mentioned in the report. The Attorney General's office also did. They re-interviewed all the family members. They took a look at the experts who one side or the other of the case, and this is what they came up with. And after all their investigation, which took months, this was their conclusion. Like the Kitsap County Prosecutor's Office before us, we too are unable to prove beyond reasonable doubt that Elijah's death was caused by criminal means. And that's exactly what we came up with. Now, that's not to say if we found other evidence we wouldn't reinvestigate this case, such as the Don Hackney case. The Don Hackney case was first ruled as an accident because we did not have all the information that we could have to go ahead and produce homicide. After the Bremerton Police Department found out this more information, we looked into it and changed it to a homicide. That does not mean that if more evidence came up on Elijah Tate, we wouldn't do that too. But we have to go by the forensic evidence that we have.
I'd like to move on past these couple of cases.
Sure.
Sure. I'd like to preface my questions with a confession that I've never voted for this office. And I mean, it's like, as David said, it's not really an issue-oriented office that grabs my attention a whole heck of a lot, you know. So honestly, I've always kind of left it blank because I don't know too much about the office. So my question to both of you is, what do you see as the major roles and responsibilities of the job? And the second part of the question is, should it be an elected office?
Yeah.
You or me?
Okay.
Go ahead,
Go ahead,
Greg.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay, let me start with the first one then. Should it be an elected office? I believe it should be. Should it be partisan? No, it should not be. Like I said, bipartisan support because they look for the best person for the job. As far as being elected, it is good to be independently elected because you don't have anybody else looking over your shoulder telling you whether you should or shouldn't do an autopsy, whether you should or shouldn't reinvestigate this case. You're responsible to the voters, and I take that very seriously. You said you don't vote, but most people do vote in the coroner's race, and hopefully most people take a look at qualifications. What I see as the role of the coroner is the responsibility of doing a proper death investigation and helping the families through the process. We do that on a daily basis. There's families come into our office all the time. Like I said, there's 2,000 deaths a year in Kitsap County, so roughly 5 deaths a year. 5 deaths a day. It keeps us very busy. We do next of kin death notifications, so it has to be somebody who's got a lot of compassion for people. My background in the State Patrol gives me an investigative part, but the part in the ministry also gives me a part that really helps me with compassion of people and talking to them and sitting one-on-ones. We're sitting here. I believe the coroner's office is a very responsible office and has to be taken very seriously.
What church were you minister of? Just
Assembly of God.
Back to your question, should it be an elected position? When a county this size, I think that it should, because you could end up with somebody who has a political agenda, and you would prefer not to have that. You would prefer to have somebody who had a less biased opinion of what was happening.
I'm sorry, I got to ask this question. How could you make it a political driven agenda in that position?
Well, this goes into a conspiracy theory, but assume that somebody was appointed coroner, okay? And being in the position of the coroner, you have certain legal protections. So if somebody came to you and said, hey, I just killed so-and-so, but you need to make this an accident, you see, the coroner would be able to do that, and that's inappropriate. You could move past that point, presumably by having an elected official who would not have those ties. It's not happened here that I know of. Back to your question, about should it be an elected position, I believe it should as well. There is no clear outline what's required to be a county coroner. There are RCWs that govern the coroner's position as a county coroner.
The question was specifically, what do you feel the roles and responsibilities of that position is?
It's reasonable to expect that a potential coroner be able to conduct an investigation with compassion, honesty, and respect to the deceased. These traits, along with the sense of duty, are very important for this particular function and task in our community. Definitely a key element for anybody who intends to fill that role.
I realize that your budget is a fairly small percentage of the overall county budget, but the last what is it, 2 years, and probably a third year coming up now, there's going to be more cuts coming. You obviously can't control the number of deaths that happen in a given year, and it probably stays steady or grows. How have you maintained the same level of service, and what other ways are you going to try to continue to do that in the coming, if you're elected?
Right. It actually is a tough job. It's getting tougher all the time. Like I said, actually the number of deaths grows every year, and it's steadily increasing. When I first started in 1994, the death rate for Kitsap County was around 1,150 people. Now it's really close to 2,000 a year. So it's growing all the time. But the last 2 years, as well as, like you say, the third year coming up, our budget's being cut. And when you don't have discretionary funding in your office because you've cut everything that you can, it comes down to personnel. And what happens is I've got an office of, or did until a couple months ago, a chief deputy and 5 full-time deputies. Now I don't have a chief deputy. Looks like I will not be able to replace him after the first of the year, so it'll be down to the 5 full-time deputies and myself. Coming 24/7 is going to be very tough, a very difficult thing to do. I will have to take a lot of the deaths myself, and right now what I do is I take backup, so if there's another call that comes out, I would be called to the scene. And I also go and assist them, especially in homicides. I always go to homicides. But as far as the budget goes, it's getting tougher and tougher.
Well, whenever things get tough, you always have to look within. And that doesn't just mean in your office, it means inside yourself. The budget information that I was made aware of this morning, as well as what I've done this afternoon as research, has moved me and prepared me that in the face of these budget cuts, 7 or 9%, you were given an option, wasn't that right?
No option. You have to come up with two different
budgets for those particular numbers. Well, I'm willing to return 10% of my salary, if elected, back to the actual fund of the coroner's office for the next 4 years. That's my first term. We can make a decision after that if I continue. But because of the tough economic times, I think that you actually have to look within. I'm sorry. You have to look within and definitely make a decision about who's going to make the first change, who's going to actually do the most motivational change. And I would encourage other elected officials to do the same thing. Why would we, at this point in time, not be willing to change ourselves if we're asking everybody else to do the same thing? I would definitely look at waste and managing the control of sensitive items and equipment. There's no need to replace something that isn't broken. There's no need to buy something that isn't necessary, and there's no need to have accidents happen that can be prevented. The damage to equipment, as was mentioned, could be very catastrophic in the way of finances. I have it here somewhere. The cost of training people, for example, to use the X-ray machine, is it necessary to have everybody trained, or should we just pick 1 or 2 people?
Well, to answer that question, it's free training.
It's free training.
It's being put on by the people that are putting the equipment in.
What's the brand of the X-ray machine?
It's CMS.
CMS.
And as far as cutting your salary by 10%, that's $10,000. That does not make up the $70,000 that you'd be short. So you have to end up cutting somebody anyway. So my answer to that is, if you have to cut, then you want to take on some responsibilities yourself.
Absolutely, but you have to start with yourself. I didn't say I was going to solve this alone, just by the one change in myself. This would be an office effort, but this would make the transition a little more smooth. Is the room properly insulated against radiation?
We did put that into the bid for the radiation for the sheetrock, for the leaded sheetrock, and because of state standards, they said we don't need to because it's low radiation, and because we're working on dead people, they don't need it done. So we save money there.
For you to do autopsies yourself, you've had to have a certain amount of training. Are there refreshers you need to go through if you were to be doing that in 2010 on a more regular basis?
For myself to do autopsies?
For your training or your professional certifications, anything like that?
To do autopsies?
To do autopsies, correct. Yeah.
No, it takes a doctor, a forensic pathologist.
What were you saying that you would? You would respond to some rather than a chief deputy?
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Investigations, I'm sorry, I might not be clear.
Oh, investigations, yes.
Yes.
Death investigations at the scene.
And you're certified and trained?
Oh, certainly. Oh, yes.
Okay. Pete, do you have the same certification and training?
That comes with the position, and unfortunately I haven't been through that training, but it would come with the position.
Okay.
Go ahead. I've got other questions, but
no, I'm like Lewis. I'm still learning.
Well,
exactly.
If I could address Greg, when you came to the coroner's office, were you not hired as a laborer?
As a deputy coroner.
You were hired directly as a deputy coroner, not as a laborer.
No, deputy coroner. Yeah.
Okay.
You guys have anything else? I don't think I say. Sorry. What we'd like to do to kind of bring it to a close here is give each of you one last time to any statement you'd like to make, anything maybe we haven't spoken about, or any last.
I'm sorry,
yeah.
just one more question. It just popped in my head. The office is important in the law investigation side of it, and the relationships that are developed with law enforcement. I understand that it's a very good relationship right now.
Yes.
And is there anything that you would change in that relationship at this point as you came into the office? I mean, he seems to have very good relationships with the sheriffs and all the police departments and things like that. Is that in your sense that you need to take control and change the function of how things work, is that something you look into also with the relationships between the coroner's office and the law enforcement?
Why would I want to change something that seems to be working appropriately? It doesn't cost any extra to communicate with these agencies. I don't believe that I would want to change anything. I would just want to...
so it's, in your opinion, it's a good relationship?
I would want to continue and nurture these relationships because in the end, our responsibility is the body. It's not the crime scene. We give them facts and information that we have discovered, and if there is a crime, they move forward with it. Otherwise, the process is just to maintain the community's health, to provide respect to the deceased, to investigate if there is a questionable death, and I don't see a reason to change that.
Greg, is the relationship that you have cultivated, is it unusual or is it pretty common around statewide with coroner's office and law enforcement?
Actually, it's not statewide, actually. There's a lot of coroner's offices that are butt heads with the sheriff's departments and police departments. I've worked very hard to make sure that doesn't happen here, that we work well with them. Doesn't bend over and do exactly what they want. They don't bend over and do exactly what I want, but we work well as a team because to come up with good answers. The fact that I graduated from the State Patrol Academy with Steve Boyer doesn't hurt either. We were in the academy together. But I've nurtured those positions with both police departments, sheriff's departments, State Patrol, of course, as well as even the FBI.
I'm sorry, David.
No, that was fine. No, I didn't mean to rush through it all. I'm glad you asked. But we have another, I apologize, we have another editorial board meeting coming in on the back of this one,
sure.
So I'm trying to get things wrapped up. So if you would, I'll give, this time we'll let Pete lead off.
Okay.
And Greg finish.
As you can see, we both are passionate about our positions, but myself, I feel that I'm very qualified for the position. I think that I'm as qualified as Greg was whenever he first started, possibly more because of my experience overseas and abroad. I've worked with several agencies that alone could be considered a career if you were to stick with them, and I feel very honored to have had that opportunity. The world that we live in has just allowed a very diverse person to come from it and come back to our county, and I'm humbled to be able to run for this position. I've always been able to run my shop on time, on budget, and possibly under budget and ahead of time. I've never had any problems with that, and I don't see any problems with running the Kitsap County Coroner's Office as I have in the past with other agencies. I definitely wish to improve and nurture the relationships that have been developed. I would like to make a stronger assertion to the community that I want to take the coroner's office in a positive direction. I want to be able to reach out to our surrounding communities and maybe help the coroner's office become better than it has, fully utilize the morgue to its fullest potential, and possibly create an inter-county agreement so that we can work with other counties to help pay to supplement our operation. Smaller counties and such, they're not equipped like we are, and it's very fortunate that we have this new facility to be able to utilize like that. So it's a very exciting time, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. I would like to, of course, continue to nurture these relationships that we have not only with law enforcement, but also with the public. Like I said, I'm involved in a lot of different boards, as well as with PSNBA, and also we give talks to the Navy. We talk on Naval Base Bangor, as well as PSNS. And when a new ship comes in or a new sub, we always go out and we talk to every one of the sailors out there. So it's thousands a year that we go and talk about DUI and preventing premature death. We also talk in high schools. We do mock crashes with MAD. We're very involved in the community, and I like that because it makes me feel like we're having less deaths in Kitsap County because of the efforts that we're putting into it. As far as the morgue being a facility for surrounding counties, that's the reason I built the morgue the way it is. It's built for a regional center. One of the nice things about the x-ray machine coming in, and the reason why I got the x-ray machine because of this grant, was because of my regional outreach. And Clallam, Jefferson, and Mason County will be able to use this for free because it's government money that bought this. What my hope is that they'll be able to come in and see our facility and be able to utilize us for their place to do autopsies. So yeah, that is my eventual goal.
Well, thank you both for coming. Appreciate the time.
Thank you.